pen trembled between her fingers, hovering above the termination agreement like a blade waiting to fall. Zara Adeyemi kept her eyes fixed on the document, refusing to look up at the HR representative seated across the mahogany desk. Seoul's skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, indifferent to the quiet devastation unfolding in this corner office. She pressed her left hand against her stomach beneath the table, feeling the secret growing there, the one nobody in this building would ever know about. The signature came out shaky, barely recognizable as her own. She was 26 years old, pregnant with his child, and he had no idea she even existed beyond the stack of contracts she translated every morning. 6 years later, everything would change. Please like, share, and subscribe. The morning had started like any other. Zara arrived at Kong Industries headquarters at exactly 7:45, 15 minutes before her shift began. She liked the quiet of the building at that hour, when the marble floors still echoed with emptiness and the executive suites remained locked behind frosted glass doors. She had worked here for 14 months. 14 months of translating documents. 14 months of scheduling meetings between Korean executives and Nigerian business partners. 14 months of being invisible in a building filled with people who looked right through her. And 14 months of watching him. Junho Kong moved through the headquarters like a shadow wearing a three-piece suit. At 37 years old, he commanded not just this corporation but something far darker beneath its polished surface. Zara had heard the whispers. She had seen the men who visited late at night, their knuckles scarred and their eyes empty. She had noticed how even the most senior executives lowered their gazes when he passed. She knew what he was, and she had fallen for him anyway. It had happened slowly, the way all terrible things do. A glance held too long across a crowded conference room, his fingers brushing hers when she handed him a translated contract. The night 3 months ago when he had found her working late, tears streaming down her face after a phone call from Lagos telling her that her grandmother had passed. He had said nothing. He had simply sat beside her in the empty office, his presence filling the silence until her breathing steadied. When she finally looked up, his charcoal gray eyes held something she had never seen before, something almost human beneath all that cold discipline. That night had changed everything, and now she was paying the price. The HR representative cleared her throat, pulling Zara back to the present. The woman's name was Ms. Park, and she wore her authority like armor, polished, impenetrable, utterly devoid of sympathy. The restructuring affects several departments, Ms. Park explained, sliding another document across the desk. Your position has been deemed redundant. You will receive 3 months severance and a letter of recommendation. Zara nodded slowly, her throat too tight for words. Redundant. The word echoed through her mind like a curse. She had given everything to this job. She had learned Korean until her accent nearly disappeared. She had sacrificed sleep, friendships, any semblance of a social life, all to prove that she belonged here. And now she was being discarded like yesterday's meeting notes. Do you have any questions? Ms. Park asked. Zara thought of the pregnancy test she had taken 3 days ago. She thought of the second test she had taken to be sure. She thought of the third test she had purchased with shaking hands, desperately hoping the first 2 had been wrong. They hadn't been. No, she whispered. No questions. Ms. Park nodded with practiced efficiency. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Please surrender your access badge before leaving the building. Zara rose on unsteady legs. The walk to her desk felt like a funeral procession. Employees she had worked beside for over a year averted their eyes as she passed. Nobody offered comfort. Nobody asked questions. In the corporate hierarchy of Kong Industries, she had never been important enough to notice, and certainly not important enough to mourn. Her desk was small, tucked in a corner near the window overlooking Gangnam. She had decorated it with photographs of Lagos, a small succulent plant she had named Hope, and a calendar counting down the days until her next visit home. That visit would come sooner than expected now. She packed everything into a cardboard box in under 10 minutes. Her entire professional life in Seoul, reduced to a collection of trinkets that barely filled the bottom. And then she heard his voice. The Nairobi contracts need to be finalized by end of week. Zara's hands froze over the box. Junho Kong stood less than 20 feet away, speaking to his right-hand man in the corridor. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her annual salary, the jacket tailored perfectly across his broad shoulders. His black hair was styled back from his forehead, revealing the edge of something dark inked along his neck. A tattoo she had glimpsed only twice before, always partially hidden beneath his collar. Today, the top button of his shirt was undone. The tattoo was visible. A dragon, rendered in black and gray, wound from behind his left ear down toward his collarbone. The detail was extraordinary. Each scale seemed to shimmer with shadows, the creature's body coiling with ancient power. Korean clouds and cherry blossoms surrounded it, fading into darkness near his shoulder. Zara had wondered about that tattoo for months. She had imagined tracing its lines with her fingertips, asking him what it meant, learning the stories hidden beneath his skin. Now she never would. Junho's companion, a man named Sung-min who served as his second-in-command, nodded at whatever instructions were being given. But as they turned to walk away, Junho's gaze swept across the open office floor. It landed on Zara. For a single heartbeat, their eyes met. She saw recognition flicker across his face. He remembered her. Of course he remembered her. They had shared one night of whispered conversations and unspoken confessions. One night that had somehow resulted in the life now growing inside her. But then his expression shuddered. Cold, distant, untouchable. He looked away without acknowledgement and continued walking. And Zara understood, with devastating clarity, exactly what she had meant to him. Nothing. She was nothing. The security guard arrived moments later to escort her from the building. Zara clutched the cardboard box against her chest, trying to hide the way her hands were trembling. She kept her head high as they walked through the lobby, past the reception desk where she had once dreamed of being promoted, past the elevators that led to executive floors she would never see again. The revolving doors deposited her onto the busy Seoul sidewalk. Spring sunshine warmed her face, incongruously cheerful against the wreckage of her morning. Pedestrians flowed around her without pause, a river of bodies rushing toward destinations that mattered. Zara stood frozen on the curb. She was pregnant. She was unemployed. And the father of her child had just looked at her like she was a stranger. The tears came then, silent and unstoppable, streaming down her cheeks, while the city continued its indifferent rhythm around her. She didn't bother wiping them away. What was the point? Nobody was watching. Nobody cared. She had never felt more alone in her life. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her roommate asking about dinner plans. Zara ignored it. She couldn't think about dinner. She couldn't think about anything except the impossible situation stretching before her like an endless road with no markers. She needed to go home. Not her tiny apartment in Itaewon. Not the cramped single room she shared with two other foreign workers trying to make it in a country that had never fully welcomed them. Home. Lagos. Her mother would know what to do. Her mother always knew what to do. Zara walked to the nearest subway station on autopilot, her mind racing through logistics. She had savings, not much but enough for a plane ticket. She could stay with her parents until she figured out her next steps. She could have the baby surrounded by family instead of strangers. The thought of the baby made her stomach clench. She pressed her hand against her abdomen again, feeling nothing yet, only the knowledge of what was growing there. A life created in one stolen night with a man who ruled empires from shadows. A life that would never know its father, because Zara had already made her decision. She would not tell him. What would be the point? He had dismissed her without a second glance. He had watched her pack her belongings and walk away like she was furniture being removed from an office. Telling him about the pregnancy would accomplish nothing except possibly putting her in danger. She knew what he was. She knew the kind of men he commanded. And she knew that a woman like her, foreign, powerless, disposable, would be nothing but an inconvenience to a man like Junho Kong. Better to disappear. Better to raise this child alone than to beg for acknowledgement from someone who had already proven she meant nothing to him. The subway car was crowded, but Zara found a seat near the door. She watched the underground tunnels flash by through the window, thinking about the night everything had changed. It had been raining, the kind of soul downpour that flooded streets and trapped everyone indoors. She had been working late, finishing translations for a Nigerian oil deal that needed to close by morning. Most of the building had emptied hours ago, but Zara stayed, determined to prove her worth. That was before she knew her worth had already been calculated and found insufficient. Her grandmother's death had come through a crackling phone call at 11:30 p.m. Cancer. The word had traveled across oceans to strike her like a physical blow. She had collapsed at her desk, sobbing into her hands while the rain hammered against the windows. That was when he found her. Junho Kang, working late in his private office 3 floors above, had come down for something, a file, perhaps, or simply to check on the building. She never found out. All she knew was that one moment she was alone with her grief, and the next moment he was there. He hadn't offered platitudes or false comfort. He had simply sat in the chair beside her desk and waited. When she finally stopped crying, he had spoken. His voice was low and surprisingly gentle, nothing like the cold commander she had observed from a distance. He told her about losing his own grandmother when he was 19, about the guilt of being too far away to say goodbye, about the way grief never fully healed, only scarred over like old wounds. They had talked for hours, and then, somehow, they had ended up in his private office. What happened next was a blur of warmth and desperation and the kind of connection she had never experienced before. His hands on her skin, his mouth against her throat, the sleeve tattoos she finally glimpsed when he removed his jacket, guardian lion statues and Korean calligraphy and cherry blossoms dissolving into shadow. Afterward, he had held her like she was something precious. And in the morning, everything returned to normal. He went back to being the untouchable executive. She went back to being the invisible translator. They never spoke of that night again, moving around each other like planets in separate orbits. She had told herself it meant nothing. She had almost believed it. And then the mist period came, and the nausea, and the 3 positive pregnancy tests that shattered every careful lie she had constructed about that night. The subway announced her stop. Zara emerged from the underground and walked the familiar route to her apartment. The building was old, paint peeling from the walls and stairs groaning under each step. But the rent was cheap and her roommates were kind, and it had felt like home for 14 months. Now it felt like a temporary shelter in a storm. Her roommates weren't home when she arrived. She set the cardboard box on her bed and began to pack. Clothes first, then documents, then the few precious items she had carried from Lagos, photographs, her grandmother's beaded bracelet, a letter her father had written when she first left home. She booked a flight for the following morning. She sent a message to her mother saying she was coming home for an extended visit. She did not mention the baby. That night, she lay awake in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the city outside her window. Seoul had been her dream for so long. The chance to work internationally, to build a career, to prove that a girl from Lagos could compete on any stage. Now that dream was ending, and a new one was beginning. She placed her hand on her stomach, feeling nothing, imagining everything. "I will protect you," she whispered to the life growing inside her. "I will give you everything. You will never wonder if you are wanted. You will never feel invisible." The tears came again, but they were different this time. Not grief, something closer to determination. She would survive this. She would build a new life. She would raise this child with all the love and strength her Nigerian heritage had taught her. And Junho Kang would never know what he had lost. 6 years passed like seasons changing. Lagos embraced Zara like a mother welcoming home a lost child. Her parents asked few questions when she arrived, somehow understanding that their daughter needed time and space before explanations would come. When the pregnancy became impossible to hide, they offered nothing but support. Her mother cried. Her father paced for 3 days before finally sitting beside her on the porch, placing his weathered hand over hers, and saying simply, "This child will be loved." And the child was. Noah came into the world on a sweltering August morning, his first cry piercing the humid air of Lagos General Hospital. He was small and perfect and absolutely, unmistakably his father's son. Those eyes. The moment Zara looked into her newborn's face, she saw Junho Kang staring back at her. The same charcoal gray, dark and striking against Noah's brown skin. The same intense, watching quality that seemed to observe the world without revealing anything in return. Took her breath away. As Noah grew, the resemblance only deepened. His expressions mirrored his father's. The way his brow furrowed when he was thinking, the slight downward curve of his lips when he was displeased, the calm stillness that seemed unusual in a child so young. He watches everything, Zara's mother observed when Noah was 2. Like he's memorizing the world. Zara said nothing. She knew exactly where that watchfulness came from. The years brought changes Zara had never anticipated. She found work as a translator for international businesses operating in Lagos, her Korean fluency finally becoming the asset it should have been all along. The money wasn't extraordinary, but it was enough. Enough for a small apartment of their own. Enough for Noah's school fees. Enough to build a life that felt stable and real. She never stopped thinking about Korea. Late at night, after Noah fell asleep with his small body curled against hers, she would remember. The sound of rain against Junho's office windows. The warmth of his hands. The impossible gentleness in his voice when he spoke about grief and loss and the things that never fully healed. She wondered if he ever thought about her. She doubted it. Men like Junho Kang did not think about forgotten assistants. Men like him moved through the world collecting experiences and discarding them like old clothes. Always forward, never backward, building empires from other people's wreckage. She had made peace with that. Mostly. Noah asked about his father for the first time when he was 4 years old. They were walking home from the market. His small hand wrapped around 2 of her fingers. When he looked up at her with those devastating gray eyes and said, "Mama, why don't I have a daddy like Michael?" Michael was his friend from nursery school. A cheerful boy whose father picked him up every afternoon. Zara's heart cracked down the middle. She knelt on the dusty Lego street, taking both of Noah's hands in hers. "Your daddy lives very far away," she said carefully. "In a country called Korea. Why doesn't he visit?" "Because..." She searched for words that would be honest without being cruel. "Because sometimes grown-ups make choices that are complicated. But it has nothing to do with how special you are. You are the most special boy in the whole world." Noah considered this with the seriousness of a much older child. "Does he know about me?" The question pierced her like a blade. "No," she admitted. "He doesn't know about you." "Oh." Noah processed this information for a long moment. Then, "Maybe you should tell him, Mama. Maybe he would want to know." Zara pulled her son into a fierce embrace, hiding the tears that spilled down her cheeks. "Maybe someday," she whispered against his hair. "Maybe someday." But she never did. The offer came when Noah was 5.5 years old. Zara had built a reputation among international businesses operating in Lagos. Her translation work was meticulous, her cultural knowledge invaluable, her professionalism unimpeachable. She had received recruitment inquiries from 3 different companies in the past year alone. But this one was different. "Seoul?" Her mother's voice carried through the phone line with obvious concern. "You're considering moving back to Seoul?" Zara sat at her small kitchen table, the offer letter spread before her. The salary was extraordinary. Nearly triple what she earned in Lagos. Housing assistance. International school enrollment for Noah. A 2-year contract with one of Korea's fastest-growing tech companies. "It's an incredible opportunity," she said quietly. "And Noah, he's getting older. He asks about his heritage constantly. He wants to understand that part of himself." "His heritage is Nigerian," her mother said firmly. "His heritage is both, Mama." Silence stretched across the connection. Her mother sighed. "What about his father? What if you encounter him?" Zara had considered this. She had spent 3 sleepless nights considering it, weighing risks against rewards, fear against opportunity. Seoul was an enormous city, over 10 million people. The chances of crossing paths with Junho Kang were infinitesimal. And even if they did meet, He had looked at her like a stranger on her last day at Kong Industries. He wouldn't recognize her. He had never truly seen her in the first place. "The company is in Busan," she said, "hours away from where he operates. And besides, I'm not the same scared girl who left Seoul 6 years ago." "No," her mother agreed softly. "You're not." 3 months later, Zara and Noah landed at Incheon International Airport. The Korean autumn greeted them with crisp air and golden leaves, a stark contrast to the humid warmth they had left behind in Lagos. Noah pressed his face against the taxi window as they drove toward their new apartment, his gray eyes wide with wonder at the towering buildings and neon lights. "Is this Korea, Mama?" he asked in the slightly accented Korean she had been teaching him for months. "Yes, my love. This is Korea. It's so big." She smiled, pulling him against her side. "Yes, but we're going to make it feel like home." Their apartment was modest but clean, located in a quiet residential neighborhood far from the glittering chaos of Gangnam. Zara had chosen it deliberately, close to good schools, near public transportation, removed from any area where she might accidentally encounter memories she had spent 6 years trying to forget. The tech company that employed her was headquartered in Busan, with a satellite office in Seoul. Most of her work could be done remotely, occasional trips to headquarters required but manageable. It was the perfect setup for a single mother trying to balance career and parenthood. Noah enrolled in an international school within walking distance of their apartment. The student body was diverse, Korean children alongside expatriates from a dozen different countries. He made friends quickly, his natural watchfulness giving way to genuine warmth once he felt comfortable. For the first 6 months, everything was perfect. Zara rebuilt her life piece by piece, creating a new normal that felt sustainable and real. She had a good job, a comfortable home, a healthy son who was thriving in his new environment. The shadows of her past seemed distant, safely contained in memories she rarely allowed herself to revisit. And then came the school fundraiser. The invitation arrived in Noah's backpack on a rainy October afternoon. The prestigious International Academy of Seoul was hosting its annual charity gala, raising funds for educational programs in underserved communities. Parents were encouraged to attend and bring guests. It was exactly the kind of event Zara would normally avoid. But Noah had been chosen to participate in a student performance, a traditional Korean fan dance his class had been practicing for weeks. His excitement was infectious, impossible to deny. "Please, Mama?" He looked up at her with those gray eyes, so like his father's that it still sometimes stole her breath. "All my friends' parents are coming." She couldn't refuse. The gala was held on a Saturday evening in November, hosted at the school's grand auditorium. Zara dressed carefully for the occasion, an elegant black dress she had purchased specifically, her long dark curls arranged in an elaborate updo. She looked nothing like the nervous assistant who had signed termination papers 6 years ago. Time had changed her. She had become someone stronger, someone who had survived heartbreak and built a life from its ruins. Noah looked handsome in his traditional hanbok, the blue and white fabric contrasting beautifully with his brown skin. He held her hand as they walked into the auditorium, his small fingers squeezing hers with nervous energy. "Remember to breathe," she whispered. "You're going to be wonderful." The auditorium was already filling with well-dressed parents and their children. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors. A string quartet played softly in one corner while servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. It was the kind of wealth Zara had once witnessed from the periphery, never quite belonging to but always observing. Now she moved through it with her son's hand in hers, neither intimidated nor impressed. She found seats near the front, wanting to ensure a good view of Noah's performance. He fidgeted beside her, straightening his hanbok every few minutes, his gray eyes scanning the crowd. "Are there many people?" he asked. "Many," she confirmed. "But they're all here to support students like you. Don't be nervous." He nodded seriously. Then, "I wish Grandma could see." "She's watching from Lagos," Zara promised. "Your grandmother never misses anything important." The program began with speeches from school administrators, followed by a video presentation about the charitable causes being supported. Zara half listened, her attention divided between the screen and her son's increasingly anxious energy. "Soon," she murmured. "Your performance is soon." And then the auditorium doors opened. Zara didn't see him enter. She was focused on Noah, helping him adjust the ribbons on his hanbok before he went backstage with his classmates. But she felt the shift in the room, a subtle change in energy, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. She looked up, and the world stopped. Junho Kang stood in the entrance of the auditorium, looking exactly as she remembered and entirely transformed. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, tailored perfectly across his broad shoulders. His black hair was styled back from his forehead, and the dragon tattoo on his neck was partially visible beneath his collar. He was speaking to a woman beside him, a school administrator judging by her badge, nodding at whatever she was saying. Then his gaze swept the room, passed over Zara without recognition. Of course, she had always been invisible to him. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she watched him accept a glass of champagne, move through the crowd with that predatory grace she remembered too well. People parted for him instinctively, drawn to his power while simultaneously fearing it. What was he doing here? The question burned through her mind. This was a school fundraiser, not a business meeting. The Junho Kang she remembered did not attend charity events at children's schools, unless cold horror washed over her, unless he was here for another reason, unless somehow, impossibly, he had found out about Noah. No, the rational part of her mind rejected the panic. There was no way. She had been careful. She had told no one about Noah's paternity except her parents, and they would never betray her confidence. This had to be a coincidence. A terrible, heart-stopping coincidence that she simply needed to survive until the evening ended. "Mama!" Noah's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. He was looking at her with concern, those gray eyes searching her face. "I'm fine," she managed. I thought I saw someone I used to know. From before." "Yes, from before." Noah considered this. "Should we say hello?" "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. She softened her voice. "No, sweetheart. We should focus on your performance. It's almost time." A teacher appeared to collect the performing students. Zara hugged Noah tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of his hair, grounding herself in the reality of him. "You're going to be wonderful," she whispered. "I love you more than anything." "I love you too, Mama." She watched him disappear backstage with the other children, then turned back to the auditorium. Junho was seated now, 3 rows behind her and to the left. She could feel his presence like a physical weight, even without looking at him. The air seemed thicker where he sat, charged with the same dangerous energy she remembered from Kang Industries. She forced herself to breathe. She had survived this man's dismissal once. She could survive his proximity now. She just needed to get through Noah's performance and leave before anyone noticed her, before he noticed her. The children's performance was scheduled after a musical interlude. Zara sat rigidly in her seat, watching the program without truly seeing it. Her entire awareness was focused on the man behind her, tracking his movements through her peripheral vision, measuring the distance between them like a prey animal calculating escape routes. 45 minutes. She just needed to survive 45 minutes. The musical interlude ended. The school principal took the stage, introducing the traditional dance program. Zara's heart rate spiked as the lights dimmed and children began filing onto the stage. Noah was near the front. He looked so small in his hanbok, his brown skin glowing under the stage lights. His gray eyes found hers in the audience, and she smiled with every ounce of encouragement she possessed. The music began. The children moved through the fan dance with practiced precision, their movements synchronized and graceful. Noah was focused entirely on his performance, his natural watchfulness translating into careful attention to each step and gesture. He was beautiful. Zara's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. This was her son, her miracle, the best thing that had ever happened to her, born from the worst night of her life. Whatever else had gone wrong, whatever heartbreak she had survived. It had all been worth it for this moment. The performance ended to enthusiastic applause. Noah beamed from the stage, searching the crowd until he found her again. She clapped until her palms stung, mouthing "I love you" across the distance. He would join her soon. They would collect their coats and leave. They would go home, and this terrible evening would become nothing but a bad memory. But as the children filed off stage, something went wrong. Noah tripped on the stairs. It was a minor stumble, the kind any 5-year-old might make. But as he caught himself on the railing, his hanbok sleeve rode up, revealing the skinned elbow he had gotten at recess 2 days ago. A teacher rushed to help him, and Junho Kong rose from his seat. Later, Zara would never understand what drew his attention. Perhaps it was simply coincidence, a movement in his peripheral vision, an instinct honed by years of vigilance. Perhaps it was something else entirely, something she would never comprehend. But in that moment, as Noah looked up from the stairs, his gray eyes met those of the stranger moving toward him, and both of them froze. Junho's face went utterly still. He stared at Noah like he was seeing a ghost, or maybe himself at 5 years old, reflected back through impossible means. His dark eyes swept over Noah's features, the charcoal gray of his gaze, the set of his jaw, the particular way his brow furrowed when he was uncertain. Zara watched recognition dawn across Junho's face like sunrise burning through fog. His hand rose unconsciously to his chest, pressing against the place where his heart beat beneath expensive fabric. And then his eyes lifted, searched the crowd, found her. The air evacuated from Zara's lungs. 6 years collapsed into nothing. She was back in that corporate office, signing away her future while he watched from the corridor, looking through her like she was glass. But this time he was staring directly at her, and there was nothing indifferent about his expression. Shock, recognition, something she had never seen before, something that looked almost like devastation. He knew. In the space of a heartbeat, he had seen Noah and understood everything. The teacher helped Noah to his feet, fussing over his elbow, asking if he needed a bandage. Noah nodded distractedly, his attention still fixed on the tall stranger who hadn't moved from the middle of the auditorium. "Who is that man, Mama?" he asked when she finally reached him, her legs carrying her forward on autopilot. "Why is he looking at me like that?" Zara pulled her son close, shielding him with her body. "We need to go," she said. "We need to go now." But it was already too late. Junho was walking toward them. His stride was measured, unhurried, but absolutely unstoppable. People moved out of his path without being asked, sensing the danger that radiated from him like heat from an open flame. His charcoal gray eyes never left Zara's face. He stopped 3 feet away. Up close, she could see how the years had changed him. Lines she didn't remember had appeared around his eyes. His jaw seemed harder, his presence more imposing than it had been at 37. The dragon tattoo on his neck was fully visible now, the creature seeming to pulse with barely contained energy. "Zara," he said. Her name in his voice was like a wound reopening. "Mr. Kong." She kept her tone neutral, professional, clinging to formality like armor. "I didn't expect to see you here." His gaze dropped to Noah, who was watching him with those too familiar eyes. "You left," Junho said quietly. His voice carried no accusation, only a kind of terrible understanding. "You left, and you never—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Noah tugged on Zara's dress. "Mama, who is he?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with 6 years of secrets and silence. Zara's throat closed around all the lies she could tell, all the deflections she could attempt. But Junho spoke first. "I think," he said slowly, his voice rough with emotions she had never heard from him before, "I think I am someone who should have known about you a long time ago." Noah considered this information with his characteristic seriousness. He looked at Junho, then at his mother, then back at the tall stranger with eyes exactly like his own. "You have the same eyes as me," Noah observed. The words struck Junho like a physical blow. He staggered slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. His hands, which she now noticed bore the knuckle tattoos, honor on the right, power on the left, clenched at his sides. Yes, he managed. Yes, I do. Zara's heart was breaking in ways she hadn't known were possible. She wanted to grab Noah and run. She wanted to scream at Jun-ho for looking at her son, with those eyes full of wonder and devastation. She wanted to go back to Lagos, to the safety of a world where this moment could never happen. But she couldn't move. 6 years of hiding, 6 years of building walls, and it had all collapsed in a single moment of unfortunate seating arrangements and a child's stumble on the stairs. "We need to talk," Jun-ho said. His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of command he couldn't seem to set aside. "I don't think that's... Please." The words seemed to cost him something. His jaw tightened, and she realized with shock that his hand was trembling slightly. "Please, I need to understand." Around them, the fundraiser continued. Music played. Champagne flowed. Parents mingled and laughed and celebrated their children's accomplishments. None of them noticed the world ending in the corner of the auditorium. "Not here," Zara finally said. "Not in front of..." She glanced down at Noah, who was watching the exchange with unsettling perception. Jun-ho followed her gaze. His expression shifted into something almost painful, tenderness fighting against years of hardened discipline. "What's your name?" he asked Noah gently. "Noah Kong Adeyemi," her son answered. "My mama gave me her name, but she said I could have a Korean name too because I'm half Korean. She chose Kong because..." He trailed off, suddenly uncertain. "Mama, why did you choose that name?" Zara felt tears spilling down her cheeks. She hadn't realized she was crying. Jun-ho's face went white. "You gave him my name," he breathed. "Even though you never told me, you still..." His voice cracked. This was the moment Zara had imagined 1,000 times during sleepless nights in Lagos. The moment he would find out. The moment everything would change. She had played out every possible scenario. His rage, his indifference, his legal threats, his demands. She had never imagined this. She had never imagined him looking at their son like Noah was the sun and Jun-ho had spent 6 years in darkness. She had never imagined him looking at her with eyes full of devastation and grief and the raw edge of something she was afraid to name. "Tomorrow," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We can talk tomorrow. But tonight, I need to take my son home." Jun-ho nodded slowly. He looked at Noah one more time, drinking in every detail of the boy's face like a man dying of thirst. Then he reached into his jacket and withdrew a business card. "Tomorrow," he agreed. "Whatever time you choose. Whatever place." His voice dropped lower. "I'm not going to hurt you, Zara. I'm not going to threaten you or take anything from you. He stopped, swallowed hard. "I need to understand." She took the card with fingers that refused to stop shaking. And then she gathered her son and walked away from the father he had never known, leaving Jun-ho Kong standing alone in a crowded auditorium, watching them go with eyes that held more emotion than she had ever seen in him. Behind her, she heard his second-in-command approach. "Sir." Sungmin's voice was concerned. "Is everything clear? My schedule for tomorrow. The entire day? The entire week, if necessary." The last thing Zara heard before she stepped into the cold November night was Jun-ho's voice, barely above a whisper. "I have a son." She didn't sleep that night. Noah, exhausted from his performance and the confusing encounter with the intense stranger, fell asleep almost immediately after they returned home. Zara tucked him into bed, pressing kisses to his forehead, watching his peaceful face until she was certain he was deeply asleep. Then she sat at her kitchen table until dawn, staring at Jun-ho's business card. The card was simple, black, his name in silver lettering, a phone number below it. No company name, no title, just Jun-ho Kong and a way to reach him. She thought about not calling. She thought about packing their bags and returning to Lagos before he could find them again. She had done it once. She could do it again. But as the first light of morning crept through her kitchen window, she knew she couldn't run. Noah was getting older. His questions about his father were becoming more frequent, more insistent. He deserved answers. He deserved the chance to know where he came from, even if where he came from was complicated and dangerous and terrifying. And maybe, some small part of her that she tried very hard to ignore, maybe she deserved answers too. She had spent 6 years convincing herself that Junho would not have wanted their child, that he would have seen her pregnancy as an inconvenience to be eliminated, that she had made the right choice by disappearing. But the way he had looked at Noah, the devastation in his voice when he realized what he had missed, maybe she had been wrong. Maybe she had been very, very wrong. The call was brief. "I'll meet you," she said when he answered. "There's a coffee shop near Bukansan. Quiet. Private." She gave him the address. "When?" 1 o'clock. "Noah will be at school." A pause. Then, "Thank you." She hung up without responding. The coffee shop was nearly empty when she arrived. It was a small place, tucked away on a side street where tourists rarely ventured. The owner was an elderly Korean woman who nodded at Zara without comment and brought her the usual green tea, no sugar. Junho arrived exactly at 1. He looked different in daylight. The harsh lines of his face seemed softer, the dark circles under his eyes more prominent. He wore a charcoal gray coat over a black sweater, his neck tattoo visible above the collar. His hands, with those distinctive knuckle tattoos, were stuffed into his pockets. He looked almost uncertain. It was the first time she had ever seen him without his armor of cold control. He sat across from her without greeting, his charcoal gray eyes searching her face. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, "Why didn't you tell me?" The question was quiet, not accusatory, almost pleading. Zara wrapped her hands around her teacup, absorbing its warmth. "Why would I have?" His jaw tightened. "Because he's my son. You didn't even know my name." "That's not." "The day I was dismissed, you looked right through me, like I was furniture being removed from your building." Her voice remained steady, but her heart was pounding. "I was carrying your child, and you couldn't even acknowledge my existence." Junho closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with something she had never seen before. Regret, raw and unfiltered. "I knew your name," he said quietly. "I knew more than your name. I knew that you arrived at work 15 minutes early every day. I knew that you decorated your desk with photographs of Lagos and a plant you called Hope. I knew that you learned Korean so well that native speakers sometimes forgot you weren't born here." He paused. "I knew that you cried in my arms the night your grandmother died, and I knew that holding you felt like something I had been searching for my entire life." Zara's breath caught. "Then why?" She couldn't finish. "Because I'm not a good man, Zara." His voice was rough. "I run one of the most dangerous organizations in Seoul. People fear me. People disappear because of me. Every person I've ever cared about has become a target for my enemies." He leaned forward, his intensity almost overwhelming. "That night with you, it terrified me. What I felt terrified me. I convinced myself that the kindest thing I could do was let you go." "So you had me dismissed?" He shook his head. "The restructuring was real. Your position was eliminated. But he stopped, swallowed hard. "I could have prevented it. I could have transferred you to another department, created a new position, done anything to keep you in my orbit. Instead, I told myself it was better this way, that you would find a better life without me in it." "I found a life," Zara said. "I don't know if it was better, but I found one. With my son." The words hung between them. "Yes," she said, "with our son." Junho's composure cracked. Just for a moment, a flicker of something devastating crossing his features before he brought himself back under control. But she had seen it. She had seen what 6 years of absence had cost him. "What is he like?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "Tell me about him, please." Zara hesitated. Then, slowly, she began to speak. She told him about Noah's birth, the sweltering Lagos morning, the way he had cried for only a moment before going quiet and watchful, as if already cataloging the world around him. She told him about Noah's first steps, his first words, the way he had called her mama in Korean because she had been teaching him the language since birth. She told him about Noah's questions. The first time he asked why he didn't have a father like the other children. The way she had struggled to answer without lying, without condemning, without revealing truths she hadn't known how to explain. She told him about Noah's eyes, how looking into them sometimes felt like looking at Junho himself, those same charcoal gray depths that revealed so little while seeing everything. Junho listened without interrupting. His hands, resting on the table, trembled slightly. By the time she finished, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I missed everything," he said. His first steps, his first words, his first day of school. His voice broke. "I missed 6 years of my son's life because I was too much of a coward to hold onto something good. You didn't know." "No, but I should have. I should have." He stopped, pressed his palms against his eyes. When he lowered them, the devastating vulnerability was still there, unmasked and undeniable. "What do you want from me, Zara? Whatever it is, I'll give it. Money, security, distance. Tell me what you need." The question caught her off guard. She had expected demands. She had expected him to assert his rights, threaten legal action, attempt to take control of a situation that had spiraled far beyond his carefully maintained order. Instead, he was asking what she wanted. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "This is all. I never expected to see you again. I certainly never expected you to," she gestured helplessly, "react like this. How did you expect me to react?" She met his eyes. "I expected you to look through me again, the way you did the day I left." The words struck him like a blow. He actually flinched and looked away. "I deserved that," he said quietly. "Maybe you did." Silence stretched between them. Then Junho spoke again, his voice raw. "What do I do now? How do I—" He shook his head. "I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to be anything except what I've always been. But I want to try. I want to know him. I want him to know me. Not the version the world sees, but who I am when the walls come down." He looked at her with desperate hope. "Is that even possible? After everything I've missed?" Zara studied him for a long moment. This was not the cold executive who had dismissed her 6 years ago. This was not the untouchable crime lord who moved through Seoul like a shadow. This was a man confronting the consequences of his own choices, stripped of defenses and pleading for a chance. "It won't be easy," she said finally. "Noah knows he has a father in Korea. He knows you didn't know about him. But he's also spent 5 years without you. He has his own questions, his own fears. You can't just appear and expect him to." "I don't expect anything," Junho interrupted. "I'll take whatever you're willing to give, whatever pace works for him, whatever boundaries you need." His hands clenched on the table. "I've controlled every aspect of my life for 20 years. I've made empires bend to my will. But this is not about control. This is about earning something I have no right to ask for." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Zara made a decision. "One meeting," she said, "supervised, in a public place. If it goes well, we can discuss next steps." Relief flooded his features. "When?" "Saturday. There's a park near our apartment. Noah likes the playground there. I'll be there." He paused. "What does he know about me? Beyond the fact that I exist?" "Not much. He knows you live in Korea. He knows you didn't know about him." She hesitated. "He knows I gave him your family name." The mention of the name made Junho's expression shift again, that same devastated wonder she had seen in the auditorium. "Why did you do that?" he asked. "After everything, why?" Zara looked at her tea, watching steam curl toward the ceiling. "Because whatever happened between us, you're still his father. That's something he has a right to carry, whether you ever knew about him or not." She met his eyes. "I never wanted him to feel like a secret, or like he was something to be ashamed of. He's not." Junho's voice was fierce. "He could never be. He trailed off as if words had failed him. "He's the best thing that ever happened to me," Zara finished quietly. Junho nodded slowly. "I believe you." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 6 years pressing down on them both. Then Zara rose, leaving her unfinished tea on the table. "Saturday," she repeated. "Noon." Don't be late. I won't. She was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her. Zara. She turned. Junho was still seated, his powerful frame somehow diminished by the vulnerability in his expression. Thank you, he said, for raising him, for protecting him, for giving him a life full of love when I should have been there too. His voice broke again. Thank you. She didn't know how to respond. So she simply nodded and walked out into the autumn afternoon, leaving him alone with 6 years of regret. Saturday arrived too quickly. Zara spent the morning preparing Noah, trying to explain something she barely understood herself. His father wanted to meet him. His father hadn't known about him before, but now he did, and he wanted to be part of Noah's life. Noah listened with his characteristic seriousness, those gray eyes, his father's eyes, watching her face for cues. Will he like me? He asked finally. The question broke her heart. He already does, she promised. He liked you the moment he saw you. But he doesn't know me yet. No, but he wants to. That's why we're meeting today. Noah considered this. What if I don't like him? Zara knelt to his level, taking his small hands in hers. Then we'll figure it out together. This isn't something you have to do if you don't want to. If at any point you're uncomfortable, we leave. No questions. No pressure. He nodded slowly. Okay, Mama. Okay. They walked to the park hand in hand, Zara's heart pounding with every step. She had chosen this location deliberately. Familiar territory for Noah, public enough to feel safe, quiet enough for private conversation. Junho was already there when they arrived. He stood near the playground entrance, his massive frame somehow made gentle by uncertainty. He had dressed casually. Dark jeans, a simple black sweater, no visible tattoos except the edge of the dragon peeking above his collar. He looked almost nervous. She had never seen him nervous before. Noah spotted him immediately. Those identical gray eyes met across the distance, child and father regarding each other with matching expressions of careful evaluation. That's him, Noah said quietly. The man from the concert. Yes. He's very tall. Despite everything, Zara smiled. He is. They approached slowly. Junho watched them come, his hands hanging awkwardly at his sides like he didn't know what to do with them. Hello, he said when they reached him. His voice was carefully controlled, but she could hear the tremor underneath. Hello, Noah replied solemnly. A silence stretched between them. Then Noah said, My mama told me you didn't know about me. Is that true? The directness of the question made Junho blink. He glanced at Zara, then back at Noah. Yes, he said quietly. That's true. If I had known, I would have... He stopped. I would have done many things differently. Noah processed this. Why didn't Mama tell you? Because I made mistakes. Before you were born, I did things that hurt your mother. I wasn't the kind of person she could trust with something so important. Are you a different person now? The question was simple, but it carried the weight of everything. Junho dropped to one knee, bringing himself to Noah's eye level. Up close, the resemblance between them was even more striking. The same charcoal gray eyes, the same strong jaw, the same intensity of focus. I'm trying to be, he said honestly. I've spent a long time being someone who didn't know how to care about people the right way. But meeting you, learning that you exist, it's made me want to change. He paused. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I can promise I'll try. Noah studied him with unnerving scrutiny. Then, seemingly satisfied with whatever he saw, he nodded. Okay, he said. Do you want to see me on the swings? The shift was so abrupt that Junho seemed momentarily lost. He looked at Zara, who nodded slightly. Yes, he said, something like wonder creeping into his voice. I would like that very much. What followed was the strangest hour of Zara's life. She sat on a bench while Junho followed Noah around the playground, watching as their son demonstrated every piece of equipment with the enthusiasm of a 5-year-old tour guide. The swings, the slide, the climbing structure he had recently conquered, the sandbox where he had once found a particularly impressive rock. Junho listened to everything with intense attention, as if each detail was critically important intelligence. He pushed Noah on the swings when asked, his tattooed hands, honor and power, gentle against his son's small back. He caught Noah at the bottom of the slide, his arms steady and sure. And slowly, incrementally, the tension began to ease. By the end of the hour, Noah was chattering comfortably, sharing stories about school and friends and his favorite Korean cartoon. Jun-ho absorbed it all with quiet hunger, drinking in every word like a man who had been starving for years. When it was time to leave, Noah surprised them both. He walked up to Jun-ho and held out his hand. Not for a handshake, but for the kind of grip a child offers when they want to be held. "Can we do this again?" he asked. Jun-ho's composure shattered. He sank to his knees, taking Noah's small hand in both of his, and for a moment Zara thought he might actually cry. His voice, when he spoke, was rough with emotion. "Yes," he said. "We can do this as many times as you want." Noah smiled, that rare, full smile that transformed his serious face into pure joy. "Good. Maybe next time you can show me your tattoos. Mama said you have dragons." A sound escaped Jun-ho's throat, half laugh, half sob. "I do have dragons," he confirmed. "I'll show you everything." As they walked home, Noah between them, Zara felt something shift in her chest. The walls she had built over 6 years, the walls that had protected her heart from hoping, began to crack. Maybe this could work. Maybe, against all odds, they could find a way through the wreckage of the past. But she knew the darkness that surrounded Jun-ho Kong. She knew the enemies he had made, the dangers that followed him like shadows. And she knew that welcoming him into their lives meant welcoming that darkness too. The question was whether the light of their son could survive it. The weeks that followed the park meeting moved with a rhythm Zara had never anticipated. Jun-ho appeared in their lives with careful consistency, honoring every boundary she established while making his presence felt in ways that gradually eroded her defenses. He came to Saturday playground visits without fail. He attended Noah's taekwondo class, sitting in the back row of parents with his massive frame and dangerous tattoos, utterly incongruous among the suburban mothers who whispered about him. He learned Noah's favorite foods and began arriving with small offerings: Korean rice cakes shaped like animals, imported Nigerian chin-chin that he had somehow sourced from a specialty shop in Itaewon. He never pushed for more than she offered. And somehow, that restraint was more devastating than any demand could have been. "He asks about you," Noah reported one evening, his small hands busy with the Lego set Jun-ho had brought him. "When you're not there, he asks what you like, what makes you happy, what makes you sad." Zara paused over the dinner she was preparing. "What do you tell him?" "The truth." Noah shrugged with the simple honesty of childhood. "I tell him you like flowers and books and the way Lego smells after rain. I tell him you're happy when I do well at school. I tell him you're sad sometimes when you think I'm not watching." Her throat tightened. "You notice too much." "He says the same thing." Noah looked up with those devastating gray eyes. "He says I'm like him, that we both see things other people miss." She didn't know how to respond to that. The resemblance between father and son grew more apparent with each passing week. It wasn't just the physical similarities, the eyes, the expressions, the set of their jaws when they were concentrating. It was something deeper. The way they both held themselves with quiet watchfulness. The way they both spoke less than they observed. The way they both seemed to exist slightly apart from the world around them, cataloging everything while revealing nothing. Noah was becoming his father's son in ways that both comforted and terrified her. December arrived with unexpected snow. Seoul transformed into a winter wonderland, the familiar streets rendered magical by blankets of white. Noah had never seen snow before their move from Lagos, and his wonder at it had not dimmed despite months of exposure. "Can we build a snowman?" he begged one Saturday morning. "A big one? Please, Mama?" Zara smiled at his enthusiasm. "We can try, but I'm not sure I remember how." "I know how." Noah's eyes lit up. "My friend Michael showed me pictures. We need 3 balls, biggest on bottom, and a carrot for the nose. And..." He stopped suddenly, his expression shifting to something more uncertain. "Could we ask? Could my father come too?" My father. It was the first time Noah had used those words. Zara's heart clenched. Would you like that? Yes. Noah's voice was small but sure. I want to show him how to build a snowman. I don't think he knows either. She couldn't refuse. The call to Junho was brief. His response was immediate. He would be there within the hour. When he arrived at their apartment, snowflakes dusting his black coat and dark hair, he looked more uncertain than she had ever seen him. I've never built a snowman, he admitted, standing in her doorway like a vampire waiting to be invited in. I'm not sure I'll be any good at it. Neither am I, Zara said. But Noah is convinced he's an expert. I am an expert, Noah insisted, appearing at her side in his warmest winter coat. Michael showed me 3 videos. I know everything. Something shifted in Junho's expression, amusement softening the hard lines of his face. Then you'll have to teach me. They walked to the nearby park together, Noah between them, his small hands occasionally reaching for one of theirs. The snow continued to fall, gentle and steady, transforming the world into something pristine and new. For the next 2 hours, they built a snowman. It was a disaster. The snow was too powdery, refusing to pack properly. Noah's expert knowledge proved largely theoretical, failing spectacularly when applied to actual frozen precipitation. Junho, despite his legendary control over criminal empires, could not manage to roll a snowball larger than his fist without it crumbling. And somewhere in the chaos of their failure, something shifted. Zara found herself laughing, actually laughing, as Junho's latest attempt collapsed into powder. He stood over the wreckage with an expression of such genuine bewilderment that she couldn't help it. The laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep, releasing tension she hadn't known she was carrying. Junho looked at her. His gray eyes widened, then softened into something she had never seen before. He watched her laugh like it was the most remarkable thing he had ever witnessed. Your mother has a beautiful laugh, he told Noah quietly. I've never heard it before. She doesn't laugh enough, Noah agreed solemnly. I try to make her, but it's hard. When it was time to leave, Noah surprised them both. He walked up to Junho and held out his hand. Not for a handshake, but for the kind of grip a child offers when they want to be held. Can we do this again? He asked. Junho's composure shattered. He sank to his knees, taking Noah's small hand in both of his, and for a moment Zara thought he might actually cry. His voice, when he spoke, was rough with emotion. Yes, he said. We can do this as many times as you want. Noah smiled, that rare, full smile that transformed his serious face into pure joy. Good. Maybe next time you can show me your tattoos. Mama said you have dragons. A sound escaped Junho's throat, half laugh, half sob. I do have dragons, he confirmed. I'll show you everything. As they walked home, Noah between them, Zara felt something shift in her chest. The walls she had built over 6 years, the walls that had protected her heart from hoping, began to crack. Maybe this could work. Maybe, against all odds, they could find a way through the wreckage of the past. But she knew the darkness that surrounded Junho Kong. She knew the enemies he had made, the dangers that followed him like shadows. And she knew that welcoming him into their lives meant welcoming that darkness too. The question was whether the light of their son could survive it. The weeks that followed the park meeting moved with a rhythm Zara had never anticipated. Junho appeared in their lives with careful consistency, honoring every boundary she established while making his presence felt in ways that gradually eroded her defenses. He came to Saturday playground visits without fail. He attended Noah's taekwondo class, sitting in the back row of parents with his massive frame and dangerous tattoos, utterly incongruous among the suburban mothers who whispered about him. He learned Noah's favorite foods and began arriving with small offerings: Korean rice cakes shaped like animals, imported Nigerian chin-chin that he had somehow sourced from a specialty shop in Itaewon. He never pushed for more than she offered. And somehow, that restraint was more devastating than any demand could have been. He asks about you, Noah reported one evening, his small hands busy with the Lego set Junho had brought him. When you're not there, he asks what you like, what makes you happy, what makes you sad. Zara paused over the dinner she was preparing. What do you tell him? The truth. Noah shrugged with the simple honesty of childhood. I tell him you like flowers and books and the way Lego smells after rain. I tell him you're happy when I do well at school. I tell him you're sad sometimes when you think I'm not watching. Her throat tightened. You notice too much. He says the same thing. Noah looked up with those devastating gray eyes. He says I'm like him, that we both see things other people miss. She didn't know how to respond to that. The resemblance between father and son grew more apparent with each passing week. It wasn't just the physical similarities, the eyes, the expressions, the set of their jaws when they were concentrating. It was something deeper, the way they both held themselves with quiet watchfulness, the way they both spoke less than they observed, the way they both seemed to exist slightly apart from the world around them, cataloging everything while revealing nothing. Noah was becoming his father's son in ways that both comforted and terrified her. December arrived with unexpected snow. Seoul transformed into a winter wonderland, the familiar streets rendered magical by blankets of white. Noah had never seen snow before their move from Lagos, and his wonder at it had not dimmed despite months of exposure. Can we build a snowman? He begged one Saturday morning. A big one? Please, Mama? Zara smiled at his enthusiasm. We can try, but I'm not sure I remember how. I know how. Noah's eyes lit up. My friend Michael showed me pictures. We need 3 balls, biggest on bottom, and a carrot for the nose. And... He stopped suddenly, his expression shifting to something more uncertain. Could we ask? Could my father come too? My father. It was the first time Noah had used those words. Zara's heart clenched. Would you like that? Yes. Noah's voice was small but sure. I want to show him how to build a snowman. I don't think he knows either. She couldn't refuse. The call to Junho was brief. His response was immediate. He would be there within the hour. When he arrived at their apartment, snowflakes dusting his black coat and dark hair, he looked more uncertain than she had ever seen him. I've never built a snowman, he admitted, standing in her doorway like a vampire waiting to be invited in. I'm not sure I'll be any good at it. Neither am I, Zara said. But Noah is convinced he's an expert. I am an expert, Noah insisted, appearing at her side in his warmest winter coat. Michael showed me 3 videos. I know everything. Something shifted in Junho's expression, amusement softening the hard lines of his face. Then you'll have to teach me. They walked to the nearby park together, Noah between them, his small hands occasionally reaching for one of theirs. The snow continued to fall, gentle and steady, transforming the world into something pristine and new. For the next 2 hours, they built a snowman. It was a disaster. The snow was too powdery, refusing to pack properly. Noah's expert knowledge proved largely theoretical, failing spectacularly when applied to actual frozen precipitation. Junho, despite his legendary control over criminal empires, could not manage to roll a snowball larger than his fist without it crumbling. And somewhere in the chaos of their failure, something shifted. Zara found herself laughing, actually laughing, as Junho's latest attempt collapsed into powder. He stood over the wreckage with an expression of such genuine bewilderment that she couldn't help it. The laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep, releasing tension she hadn't known she was carrying. Junho looked at her. His gray eyes widened, then softened into something she had never seen before. He watched her laugh like it was the most remarkable thing he had ever witnessed. Your mother has a beautiful laugh, he told Noah quietly. I've never heard it before. She doesn't laugh enough, Noah agreed solemnly. I try to make her, but it's hard. This was what she had imagined during those sleepless nights in Lagos. Not the fear and anger and protective fury, but this, a father learning his son, a son discovering his heritage, a family building itself from broken pieces. Then we'll have to try harder. The snowman never got built. Instead, they ended up in a snowball fight, Zara and Noah against Junho, then Noah and Junho against Zara, then complete chaos as alliances shifted moment by moment. Snow found its way down collars and into boots. Noah's shrieks of delight echoed across the empty park. And through it all, Junho smiled. Actually smiled. Not the cold curve of lips she remembered from Kong Industries board meetings. Not the dangerous expression that made subordinates flinch. This was something genuine, warmth breaking through ice, light finding cracks in armor that had seemed impenetrable. When they finally retreated to a nearby cafe to warm up, snow melting from their coats and cheeks flushed with cold, something had changed between all of them. That was the best day ever, Noah announced, cupping his hot chocolate with both hands. Can we do it again tomorrow? If it snows again, Zara said. What if it doesn't snow? Noah's face fell. What else can we do? Junho hesitated, then spoke carefully. There's a traditional Korean village outside Seoul. Restored buildings from the Joseon dynasty. They have traditional games and crafts for children. He paused. If your mother agrees, I could take you both there sometime. Noah's eyes went wide. Mama, can we? Please. Zara looked at Junho over their son's head. He was asking permission, she realized. Despite everything he controlled, despite the power he wielded, he was waiting for her to decide. We could try that, she said slowly. Maybe next weekend. The smile that broke across Noah's face was worth any uncertainty. But as they parted ways that evening, Junho caught her arm gently. The first time he had touched her since her return to Seoul. Thank you, he said quietly, his breath visible in the cold air. For today. For giving me this chance. His hand was warm against her coat sleeve, the honor tattoo across his knuckles visible beneath his glove. She should have pulled away. She should have maintained the careful distance she had preserved for weeks. Instead, she found herself leaning slightly toward his warmth. You're trying, she said. I can see that. I need you to understand something. His voice dropped lower, more intense. What's happening here, what's building between us? It's not just about Noah. It never was. His gray eyes held hers with devastating directness. That night, 6 years ago, I felt something I had never felt before. Something I didn't know how to handle. I've spent every day since then trying to forget it. Did you succeed? No. The word was almost painful. I never stopped thinking about you. Not once. Even when I convinced myself you were better off without me, you were there. In my dreams. In every quiet moment. In every space where I let my guard down. Zara's heart was pounding. Junho, I know I have no right to ask for anything. I know I failed you in ways that might never be forgiven. But I need you to know. He stopped, struggling with words that clearly did not come easily. You were never insignificant to me. You were the most significant person I had ever met. And losing you was the greatest mistake of my life. She didn't know what to say. 6 years of pain and anger and carefully constructed indifference crumbled under the weight of his confession. She had built walls to protect herself from this man, from the memory of what they had shared, from the hope that he might have cared after all. Now those walls were falling. I need time, she managed. This is all happening so fast. I can't just. I know. He released her arm gently. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I just needed you to know the truth. Whatever happens from here, you deserve to know. He stepped back, giving her space she hadn't asked for. Good night, Zara. Good night. She watched him walk away through the falling snow, his tall figure gradually disappearing into the winter darkness. And for the first time in 6 years, she let herself wonder what might have been. The trip to the traditional village happened the following Saturday. Junho arrived in a black SUV driven by Sungmin, his ever-present second-in-command. Zara had met Sungmin briefly during her time at Kong Industries, a quiet Korean man in his early 40s, with sharp eyes and an air of absolute competence. He treated her with careful respect now, opening doors and maintaining professional distance while clearly observing every interaction. He's protective of you, Zara noted as they drove through the snow-covered countryside. Junho glanced at Sungmin in the rearview mirror. He's been with me for 15 years. He knows things about me that no one else does. He knows about us. He knows about Noah. He knows about. Junho paused, choosing his words. The situation. He's the only one outside your family who does. The village was everything Junho had promised. Restored Hanok buildings lined snow-dusted pathways, their traditional curved roofs heavy with white powder. Craftsmen demonstrated ancient techniques, papermaking, pottery, traditional weaving. Children ran between buildings playing Korean games that had survived for centuries. Noah was enchanted. He moved through the village with wide-eyed wonder, asking questions faster than either adult could answer. Why did the roofs curve like that? How did the paper get so thin? Could he try the traditional spinning top? Junho answered everything he could, and when he couldn't, he found someone who could. He held Noah's hands as their son learned to spin the top. He lifted Noah onto his shoulders so the boy could see a traditional performance over the heads of the crowd. He listened with genuine interest as Noah explained what he was learning in his Korean language classes. Zara watched them together, something painful and beautiful blooming in her chest. Late in the afternoon, they found themselves in a quiet corner of the village, resting on a wooden bench while Noah played with other children in a snowy courtyard. "He's remarkable," Junho said quietly. "You did that. You raised him to be curious and kind and fearless." "He raised himself, mostly. I just tried to keep up." "Don't diminish what you've done." His voice was firm. "You gave him everything. You became both parents when I should have been there. You taught him Korean, gave him my name, made sure he knew half of his heritage even when the other half wasn't present." He turned to look at her. "You could have taught him to hate me. You could have erased me entirely. Why didn't you?" Zara considered the question. "Because hatred is heavy," she said finally. "I learned that growing up in Lagos. My grandmother used to say that carrying hatred is like carrying poison and expecting the other person to die. I didn't want Noah to carry that weight." "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She was." Zara smiled sadly. "You would have liked her. She didn't take nonsense from anyone, no matter how powerful they thought they were. The grandmother whose death brought us together." "Yes." Silence stretched between them, comfortable rather than awkward. "I want to tell you something," Junho said eventually. "Something I've never told anyone except Sungmin." Zara waited. "The organization I run, it's not what you probably imagine. Or perhaps it's exactly what you imagine in some ways. We do things that exist outside the law. We control territories, settle disputes, handle situations that legitimate authorities cannot or will not touch." He paused. "But we also have rules, codes, lines we don't cross." "What kind of lines?" "No drugs, no human trafficking, no targeting of innocents." His jaw tightened. "My father ran this organization before me. He had no such rules. He was a monster who used power as a weapon against anyone too weak to fight back." "What happened to him?" Junho's eyes went hard. "I killed him." The words hung in the air between them. "When I was 23, I put a knife through his heart while he was sleeping. I took over the organization the same night, and I've spent every year since then trying to become the opposite of what he was." Zara should have been horrified. She should have gathered her son and fled from this man who had just confessed to patricide. But something in his voice, the old pain, the terrible necessity, made her stay. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand who I am, what I've done, what I'm capable of." He met her eyes directly. "If we continue down this path, whatever this path becomes, there can be no secrets between us. You deserve to know the darkness you're considering allowing into your life." "And Noah's life." "Yes." The word was heavy. "I will never let that darkness touch him. I will burn my entire empire to the ground before I let anyone harm our son. But you need to know the risk exists." Zara looked across the courtyard at Noah, who was laughing with other children as they threw snowballs at targets. Her beautiful boy, with his father's eyes and her stubborn heart. "I knew what you were before I slept with you," she said quietly. "I heard the whispers at Kong Industries. I saw the men who came and went late at night. I wasn't naive. But knowing and living with are different things." "Yes, they are." She turned back to him. "I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that Noah will always come first. That whatever happens between us, whatever we become or don't become, his safety and happiness will be your priority. Above business, above power, above everything. Junho reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand gently in his. I promise, he said, his voice rough with emotion. On my life and everything I hold sacred, I promise. Noah will always come first. She believed him. God help her, she believed him. Christmas came with unexpected complications. Zara had planned a quiet holiday, just her and Noah, with video calls to her family in Lagos. But Noah had other ideas. Can my father come for Christmas dinner? He asked a week before the holiday. He said he doesn't have anyone to celebrate with. That seems sad. The request blindsided her. Noah, please, Mama? Everyone should have family on Christmas. You always say that. She couldn't argue with her own values being used against her. The call to Junho was awkward in ways their recent conversations hadn't been. Something about inviting him into their home for a family holiday felt like crossing a threshold she hadn't fully prepared for. You don't have to, he said when she extended the invitation. I know this is more than you planned. Noah asked for you. I can't say no to that. Can't or won't. She didn't answer. Christmas Eve arrived with more snow and an unusual warmth in Zara's small apartment. She had decorated modestly. A small tree in the corner, lights strung around the windows, Nigerian and Korean ornaments mixed together on every surface. Junho arrived with gifts. Too many gifts. This is excessive, Zara said as he carried in bag after bag. I missed 5 Christmases. I'm catching up. You're spoiling him. That's the point. Noah tore into the presents with 5-year-old abandon, his shrieks of delight filling the small space. Junho had clearly done research. Each gift was perfectly calibrated to Noah's interests. Lego sets, Korean storybooks, a traditional drum set that Zara immediately regretted allowing into her apartment. And there was a gift for her too. A small box, elegant in its simplicity, waiting until Noah was distracted with his new treasures. You didn't have to, she said. Open it. Inside was a necklace. Simple, beautiful, clearly expensive. A single pearl pendant on a gold chain. It was my grandmother's, Junho said quietly. The one I told you about the night we... He stopped. She gave it to me before she died. Asked me to save it for someone important. Zara's throat closed. I can't accept this. It's been waiting 20 years for someone worthy of it. I've never found anyone until now. She looked up at him, tears threatening. Junho, we haven't. I know. His voice was gentle. I'm not asking for anything in return. I just wanted you to have something that meant something. Something that wasn't about money or obligation. He took the necklace from the box and held it up, a question in his eyes. She turned, lifting her braids so he could fasten it around her neck. His fingers were warm against her skin, surprisingly gentle for hands that had done terrible things. She felt the weight of the pearl settle against her chest, just above her heart. When she turned back, he was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Beautiful, he murmured. She wasn't sure if he meant the necklace or her. Noah interrupted the moment with a demand for help building his new Lego set. The tension broke, replaced by the comfortable chaos of a holiday with a 5-year-old. They ate dinner together, Nigerian jollof rice she had made from her mother's recipe, Korean banchan Junho had brought, fusion dishes that existed in the overlap of their cultures. Noah chattered between bites, high on sugar and excitement, bouncing from topic to topic with boundless energy. And Junho watched it all with something like awe. I never had this, he said quietly, late in the evening when Noah was finally asleep in his room. Christmas was complicated in my family. Power plays and political maneuvering disguised as celebration. It wasn't always like this for me either. Zara curled into the corner of her small couch, a cup of tea warming her hands. When I first found out I was pregnant, I didn't know if I could do it, if I could give a child the life they deserved. But you did. I tried. She looked toward Noah's room. Some days I still feel like I'm failing. You're not. Junho's voice was firm. I've watched you with him. The way you listen. The way you respect his autonomy while still protecting him. The way you've built a life that centers him without losing yourself. He shook his head. I've seen parents who have everything fail their children completely. You had nothing, and you gave him everything. The words warmed something cold and scared inside her. I had my family, she said. That's not nothing. No, that's everything. He was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about what comes next. What I want this to become. Her heart rate increased. And I want to be part of his life permanently. Not just visits and holidays. I want to be his father in every way that matters. He met her eyes. And I want to be part of your life too. In whatever capacity you'll allow. What does that mean? It means I'm not going to push you into anything you're not ready for. But I need you to know. What I feel for you hasn't changed since that night 6 years ago. If anything, it's grown stronger watching you with our son. Watching who you've become. Junho. I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm just telling you the truth. He rose from his chair, moving toward her slowly. I spent my entire adult life controlling every aspect of my world. But I can't control this. I can't control how I feel about you, or how much I want a future that includes all three of us. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. I love you, he said simply. I think I've loved you since the night you cried in my arms and didn't ask for anything in return. I was just too broken to recognize it. The words hung in the air between them. Zara set down her tea with trembling hands. I spent 6 years hating you, she whispered. 6 years telling myself you were a monster who didn't deserve to know about his son. 6 years building walls so high I thought no one could ever climb them. And now, she stood, closing the distance between them until they were inches apart. Now I don't know what I feel. It's all tangled up. The past and the present, who you were and who you're trying to become. She pressed her hand against his chest, feeling his heart pound beneath her palm. I can't promise you anything. I can't tell you this will end the way you want it to. I'm not asking for promises. His voice was rough. I'm asking for a chance. And if I can't give you that, then I'll still be Noah's father. I'll still be here in whatever capacity you allow. Nothing will change that. She believed him, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. One day at a time, she said finally. That's all I can offer right now. One day at a time with no expectations about where we end up. I'll take it. He leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was gentle. Nothing like the desperate passion of their night together 6 years ago. This was something quieter. Promise. A beginning. When they finally separated, Zara found herself trembling. One day at a time, she repeated. One day at a time, he agreed. January brought danger. Zara first noticed it on a Tuesday morning. A black sedan parked across from Noah's school that she had never seen before. The driver remained inside, face hidden behind tinted windows, and left when she entered the building. She told herself it was coincidence. By Friday, the coincidences had multiplied. A different car following her from the grocery store. A man she didn't recognize watching her apartment building from the coffee shop across the street. A sense of being observed that she couldn't shake no matter how hard she tried. She called Junho. Don't go anywhere alone, he said, his voice hard with controlled fury. I'm sending Sungmin to you now. Don't argue. What's happening? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Sungmin arrived within the hour, his presence both reassuring and terrifying in its implications. He positioned himself near Noah's school during pickup and outside Zara's apartment at night, a silent guardian whose very existence confirmed that the threat was real. 2 days later, Junho had answers. His name is Park Min-sik, he said, standing in her living room while Noah was safely at school. He runs a rival organization that's been trying to expand into my territory for years. We've had conflicts before. What does he want with me? Junho's jaw tightened. He's discovered Noah's existence. He's discovered your connection to me. Cold fear washed through her. How? I don't know yet, but he's using you as leverage. He sent a message demanding a meeting. If I don't comply, he'll. He couldn't finish the sentence. He'll what? He'll take what matters most to me and make me watch. The world tilted. Noah, I won't let that happen. Junho's voice was fierce. I will not let anyone touch either of you. Do you understand? How can you stop it? If he already knows. I have resources. I have loyal people. I have contingency plans I've spent years developing for exactly this kind of threat. He moved closer, taking her hands in his. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Could she? This man she had only recently allowed back into her life, whose world was filled with violence and danger. Could she trust him with the lives of her and her son? I don't have a choice, she said. Yes, you do. You could take Noah and run. Disappear somewhere I can't find you. Somewhere Minsik can't find you. Start over again the way you did before. Could I? Could we actually disappear now that they know about us? The silence was answer enough. Then I trust you, she said, because I don't have any other option. The next 3 weeks were a blur of fear and preparation. Junho moved them to a secure location, a house in the countryside, surrounded by walls and guards and security systems that belonged in spy movies. Noah thought it was an adventure, excited by the new surroundings without understanding the danger that lurked beyond them. Zara knew better. She saw the armed men who patrolled the perimeter. She saw the weapons Junho and his people carried without pretense. She saw the way Junho's expression hardened every time his phone rang with updates she wasn't allowed to hear. And she waited. The confrontation came on a cold February night. Zara was putting Noah to bed when she heard raised voices from somewhere else in the house. She froze, her hand on her son's forehead, her heart hammering against her ribs. Mama! Noah's gray eyes were wide. What's happening? Nothing, sweetheart. Just grown-up things. She forced her voice to stay calm. Stay in bed. Okay? Don't come out no matter what you hear. But, promise me, Noah. His small face was serious. I promise, Mama. She kissed his forehead and slipped out of the room, closing the door behind her with shaking hands. The voices were coming from the front of the house. She moved toward them carefully, staying in shadows, her mother's instinct to know and protect overriding any sense of self-preservation. She found them in the main room. Junho stood in the center, his posture loose but ready, the stance of a man who had fought before and would fight again. His tattoos were visible where he had rolled up his sleeves, the dragons and guardian lions seeming to pulse with dangerous energy. Across from him stood a man she didn't recognize, shorter than Junho but powerfully built, with cold eyes and a thin smile that made her skin crawl. Park Minsik. You've caused me considerable trouble, Kong, Minsik was saying. All this for a foreign woman and a bastard child. Watch your mouth. Junho's voice was deadly quiet. Or what? You'll kill me? We both know you won't. Not with your precious family under the same roof. Minsik's smile widened. Speaking of which, where is the lovely mother of your son? I'd very much like to meet her. Zara pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. This is between us, Junho said. Leave them out of it. But they're already in it, aren't they? The moment you acknowledged that boy, you made them targets. You know how this world works, Kong. Weakness is exploited. And that woman, that child, they're the biggest weakness you've ever shown. Something shifted in Junho's expression. The cold control she had always associated with him hardened into something else. Something absolutely terrifying. You're right, he said slowly. They are my weakness. But you've made a crucial mistake. Have I? You've assumed my weakness makes me predictable. That I would protect them by meeting your demands, playing your games, submitting to your control. Junho smiled, and it was the most dangerous thing Zara had ever seen. I won't. Then they die. No, you die. The words had barely left his mouth when everything exploded into chaos. Zara didn't see where they came from. Junho's people, appearing from doorways and shadows, weapons drawn. Min's 6 men fought back, but they were outnumbered, outmaneuvered. She pressed her hands over her ears against the sounds of violence, sliding down the wall until she was crouched on the floor. This was the world she had feared. This was the darkness she had tried to protect Noah from. And it had found them anyway. The sounds stopped. Silence fell, heavy and terrible. Zara. Junho's voice cut through her fog of terror. She looked up to find him standing over her, his shirt spattered with blood, none of it his own, and his gray eyes filled with something desperate. "Is it over?" she whispered. "It's over. Minsik is. It's over." He knelt beside her, his bloodied hands hovering near her face without quite touching. "Are you hurt?" "No. She couldn't finish. "I'm sorry." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry any of this." "Noah." She grabbed his arm. "Where's Noah?" "Safe. Sungmin is with him. He doesn't know what happened." Relief crashed through her like a wave. "Take me to him, please." Junho helped her up, his hand steady on her arm as he guided her through the house. She kept her eyes fixed forward, refusing to look at the aftermath of violence that surrounded them. Noah was exactly where she had left him, curled in his bed with Sungmin sitting vigilant in a chair nearby. He was asleep, actually asleep, somehow having drifted off despite everything happening elsewhere in the house. Zara climbed into bed beside him, pulling his small body against hers and holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had gone liquid. "I'll be outside," Junho said quietly from the doorway. "When you're ready to talk." She didn't answer. She just held her son and tried to remember how to breathe. The aftermath was complicated. Police never came. Junho's people handled everything through channels Zara didn't want to understand. Minsik's organization crumbled without its leader, absorbed by rivals or scattered to the wind. The immediate threat was gone, but the damage remained. Zara couldn't sleep without nightmares. Every unexpected sound made her flinch. She found herself constantly checking on Noah, confirming over and over that he was safe, that no one had taken him while she wasn't looking. She was falling apart, and Junho was the only one who understood why. "It won't always feel like this," he said one night, sitting with her on the porch of the safe house while Noah slept inside. "The fear fades, the hypervigilance calms. You learn to live with what you've seen." "Is that what you did? After your father?" He was quiet for a long moment. "After my father, I built walls so high nothing could ever hurt me again. I convinced myself that isolation was safety." He looked at her. "I was wrong." "Were you?" "Connection is risk. Love is vulnerability. But the alternative, the emptiness of a life lived behind walls, that's worse than any danger." "How do you know?" "Because I've lived both ways." He reached for her hand, and she let him take it. "The years without you were the darkest of my life. Even when I didn't consciously know what I was missing, I felt your absence. Everything was hollow. And now I have something worth protecting, something worth fighting for, something worth changing for." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "I don't expect forgiveness for who I've been, but I'm asking for the chance to prove who I can become." Zara looked at this man, this dangerous, complicated, devoted man, and made a choice. "We can't stay in this country," she said. "Not with the enemies you've made. Not with Noah's safety constantly at risk." "I know." His voice was heavy. "I've been thinking about that. And I can step back from the organization, transfer leadership to Sungmin, retain influence without being the primary target. We could live somewhere else, anywhere else. Build a life that doesn't require armed guards." "You would do that? Give up everything you've built?" "I would give up far more than that." His gray eyes held hers. "I meant what I said. Noah comes first. And you—" He stopped, struggling with words. "You come second only because he needs his mother more than he needs his father. But if it were just about what I want." "What do you want?" "I want to wake up beside you every morning. I want to help Noah with his homework and argue with him about bedtime. I want to grow old watching our son become a man. I want—" His voice broke. I want what I should have been brave enough to want 6 years ago. Tears spilled down Zara's cheeks. Ask me again. Ask you what? Ask me what you asked on Christmas Eve. Understanding dawned in his eyes. He shifted, turning to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. Zara Adeyemi, will you give me the chance to love you properly? To be a father to our son? To build a life together, wherever that life takes us? She thought of everything they had survived. The dismissal, the pregnancy, the years apart. The reunion, the fear, the violence. She thought of Noah's gray eyes and Junho's trembling hands, and the way her heart felt like it might finally be healing after 6 years of scar tissue. Yes, she whispered. His face transformed. The hard lines softened. The controlled mask crumbled. For a moment, he looked exactly like what he was. A man who had been lost and was finally being found. He kissed her. Not gently this time. This was the desperate passion she remembered from 6 years ago. The fire she had tried so hard to forget. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped the fabric of his shirt. They kissed like people who had been drowning and had finally broken the surface. When they separated, both of them were breathing hard. There are still things we need to figure out, she said. Where we'll live, what kind of life we'll build, how to explain all of this to a 5-year-old. We have time, do we? We have the rest of our lives. He pressed his forehead against hers. I'm not going anywhere, Zara. Not ever again. She believed him. They were married 3 months later. It was a small ceremony, just family and the closest friends on both sides. Zara's parents flew in from Lagos, her mother crying through the entire service while her father stood stern and protective until Junho took his hand and promised to honor and cherish Zara for the rest of his life. Noah served as ring bearer. He walked down the aisle with careful solemnity, carrying the rings on a pillow that looked oversized in his small hands. His gray eyes, his father's eyes, were fixed on both his parents as he approached, his expression serious with the weight of the moment. I practiced, he whispered when he reached them. I didn't drop anything. Junho knelt to receive the rings, pulling Noah into a brief embrace. You did perfectly, he said. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Noah replied. For marrying Mama. She's been happier lately. Zara's heart squeezed. The ceremony itself was simple, traditional Korean elements blended with Nigerian customs, a fusion as unique as their family. Zara wore a white dress with Nigerian lace details and a Korean gyokuri over her shoulders. Junho wore a dark hanbok with a Western suit jacket, the dragon tattoo on his neck visible above the collar. When the officiant declared them married, Junho kissed her with the same intensity he had shown on the porch 3 months ago. Passion and devotion and the promise of forever. Noah cheered. The reception was modest but warm. Traditional Korean dishes shared table space with Nigerian jollof rice. K-pop played alongside Afrobeat. Two cultures coming together in celebration of a family that had been broken and had chosen to rebuild itself. Later that night, after Noah was asleep and the guests had gone, Zara stood on the balcony of their hotel suite looking out at the Seoul skyline. Junho joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Regrets? He asked quietly. None. She leaned back against him. You? Only that I wasted 6 years being afraid. His arms tightened. I should have fought for you from the beginning. I should have been brave enough to keep you. We're here now. That's what matters. Yes. He pressed a kiss to her temple. We're here now. They stood together in silence, watching the city lights sparkle below them. Two people who had found each other, lost each other, and found their way back despite everything. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges they couldn't yet imagine, complications of blending cultures and building a life from scratch. But they would face them together, as a family. 1 year later, they moved to a coastal town in Portugal. Junho had transferred leadership of his organization to Sungmin as promised, retaining only advisory influence and the wealth he had accumulated over 2 decades. It was enough, more than enough, to build the quiet life Zara had dreamed of. Their house sat on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, white walls and blue shutters and a garden that Zara was slowly learning to tend. Noah attended an international school where his mixed heritage was celebrated rather than questioned. His Korean and Nigerian cultures treated with equal respect. He was thriving. On the anniversary of their move, Zara found Junho in the garden, watching the sunset with an expression of profound peace. "You look different," she said, settling beside him. "Different how?" "Lighter, like you've set something down." He nodded slowly. "For 20 years, I carried the weight of my father's legacy. The organization, the enemies, the constant vigilance. I thought it was who I was, that I couldn't exist without it. And now I know better." He turned to her, his gray eyes soft in the fading light. "Who I am is Noah's father, your husband, a man who finally figured out what matters." She kissed him gently. "Mama, father," Noah's voice carried from inside the house. "The movie is starting." They smiled at each other, the shared amusement of parents who had learned that children's priorities waited for nothing. "Coming," Zara called back. They walked inside together, hands linked, to join their son on the couch for their weekly movie night. Noah had chosen a Korean animated film, insisting that his father needed to appreciate the art form properly. Junho settled between them, one arm around Zara and one hand resting on Noah's shoulder. The boy leaned into him automatically, comfortable and secure in a way he had learned to be over the past year. Outside, the Portuguese sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Inside, a family that should never have existed watched their movie together, laughing at the funny parts and holding each other through the sad ones. They had survived dismissal and secrets and 6 years apart. They had survived violence and fear and the darkness that followed powerful men. They had survived everything the world had thrown at them. And they were still here, together. Zara looked at her husband and her son, feeling the weight of the pearl necklace against her chest. His grandmother's gift, passed down through generations to rest above her heart. She thought about the young woman who had signed those dismissal papers 6 years ago, tears streaming down her face as she hid the greatest secret of her life. She had been so afraid then, so alone. She wasn't alone anymore. Junho caught her looking and raised an eyebrow. "What?" he asked softly. "Nothing. Just grateful." "For what?" "For Noah. For you. For second chances." She smiled. "For the way things worked out despite everything." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her wedding ring. "I'm the grateful one," he said. "You gave me a son I didn't deserve to know and a love I did nothing to earn. Everything good in my life started with you. Then we're even. We're family. That's better than even." Noah shushed them both loudly, demanding attention be returned to the movie. They complied, settling into comfortable silence as the story unfolded on screen. And in the growing darkness, surrounded by the warmth of the only home that mattered, Zara finally understood what her grandmother had been trying to teach her all those years ago. Love was not the absence of pain. Love was choosing to stay despite the pain, to build despite the wreckage, to hope despite the evidence. Love was signing a dismissal letter while carrying a secret, and 6 years later, watching the father of your child learn to be a father for the first time. Love was all of it, the beginning and the ending and everything in between. She reached for Junho's hand in the darkness, feeling his fingers intertwine with hers immediately. An automatic response now, after months of learning each other again. This was her family. This was her home. And she would protect it with everything she had. Forever. The end.